Imagine a 57-year-old blind mystic, uh, a man who has literally spent the last 50 years mastering these ancient trance-like meditation states.
Right, which usually conjures up an image of someone in a cave somewhere.
Exactly. But now picture him sitting in the dark using ChatGPT, Claude, and an iPhone 16 Pro Max to just brutally debunk modern spiritual
Oh,
gurus.
it is such a wild juxtaposition.
Yeah, it really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling from a fascinating stack of sources for you. We've got hours of dense, unfiltered audio recordings, detailed YouTube audience analytics, and personal notes from an extraordinary figure named Osman.
Yeah, he's a yogi and bioenergy healer, and he is aggressively combining mystical experience with, like, real 21st century technological rigor.
Which he calls scientific yoga. And just to be clear up front, our mission today is to map out Osman's theoretical perspective for you. We're not endorsing his specific religious critiques or, validating his concept as objective scientific fact.
Right, we're just unpacking how he builds this incredibly unique worldview.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly understand Osman's perspective, you really have to look at how he views survival, adaptability, and even the biological mechanics of your nightly sleep habits.
Yeah, and that concept of adaptability, I mean, that is the absolute foundation of his entire philosophy. You really can't grasp his approach to artificial intelligence or his critique of spirituality without understanding his personal reality.
Right, because of his vision. Right.
Yeah. 3 years ago, Osman lost his sight completely. And for most people, a sudden loss of vision would be, an unimaginably devastating roadblock, a reason to just retreat.
I mean, absolutely. I can't even imagine.
But Osman took a completely different route. He leaned heavily on a lesson he learned as a young child from his first teacher, Swami Sivananda.
Okay.
And the lesson was basically that to be successful in any environment, you have to master the art of adaptability. So Osman looked closely at the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
He observed that earthworms are blind, moles are blind, and yet they don't stop living. They don't just sit around mourning a lack of visual input.
They just keep digging.
Exactly. They just reorient their senses and find a different mechanical way to navigate their environment.
And for Osman, his way of digging through the modern intellectual landscape is this massive pivot to artificial intelligence. I mean, he uses what he calls the big three, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, to systemize his 50 years of raw experiential knowledge.
Which is just a staggering volume of output. He's actively utilizing these algorithms to help him process his thoughts into, like, 1,000 Kindle books.
1,000? That is insane.
It really is. But to understand why he needs AI for this, you have to look at the mechanics of his meditation.
Right, the Samadhi states.
Yeah. Osman frequently enters profound states of consciousness known as Samadhi, which is this deep, trance-like meditation where normal ego boundaries just dissolve.
So he's completely out of his normal conscious mind.
Exactly. So when he comes out of these states, his biological brain has to translate a nonlinear, multidimensional experience into sequential spoken English words.
That sounds practically impossible.
It's incredibly hard. His raw audio can be really rambling. It's colored by his accent, natural pauses, and just the sheer difficulty of expressing the inexpressible. So AI acts as the ultimate linguistic synthesizer for him.
Okay, but doesn't outsourcing that process to an algorithm kind of strip the human soul out of the teachings?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, it feels a bit like a master painter losing his sight and just asking a computer to generate the masterpiece for him. You lose the nuance of the human struggle.
Yeah, I get that. But Osman applies rigorous logic to defend this method.
Oh.
He views AI strictly as a symbiotic partner, not a replacement for the human soul.
Because the AI doesn't actually experience anything.
Right. AI has no nervous system. It has literally no idea what it actually feels like to have an out-of-body experience. And it's fundamentally incapable of that out-of-the-box lateral thinking that comes from human intuition.
Because it's confined by its training data.
Exactly. But what AI excels at is formatting, cross-referencing, and organizing vast amounts of information instantly.
So he provides the soul, the AI provides the structure.
Yes. Osman provides the highly nuanced human experience, and the AI serves as his organizational eyes. It's his way of adapting his internal sight into a format the 21st century can actually digest.
He just refuses to let his physical limitation isolate his knowledge. And because he relies so heavily on this deeply pragmatic, data-driven framework to run his own life, he applies that exact same ruthless standard to the rest of the spiritual community.
Oh, he pauses like a scalpel.
Yeah.
I mean, he aggressively dismantles anything that lacks logical consistency.
There is this specific story in his audio recordings that perfectly illustrates this. Osman was listening to a 45-minute podcast featuring a young Indian woman recounting her spiritual journey.
Right, I remember this one.
Yeah, and for the first 30 minutes, he was totally on board. She described a childhood desire to meet a higher power, her rejection of traditional gurus, and eventually this massive out-of-body experience in her early 20s.
Where she felt this all-pervading love.
Exactly, this ecstatic, blissful awareness.
And Osman deeply relates to those states. I mean, he has experienced similar periods of extreme, overwhelming bliss.
The Satchitananda states.
Yes, Satchitananda. A state of pure existence, consciousness, and bliss that can be so neurologically overwhelming, it literally knocks the physical body unconscious. So physiologically, he is completely tracking with her.
Right up until the 30-minute mark of this podcast, the young woman suddenly transitions her narrative and says, "Now I know that the self is God. We are God."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she felt she was one with everything, therefore she concluded she is the creator. And for Osman, that phrase just brings the record to a screeching halt.
Because that phrase is the classic hallmark of non-dualistic philosophy.
The salt doll metaphor, right?
Exactly, the metaphor of a salt doll walking into the ocean.
Hmm.
The individual identity dissolves completely into the infinite universe, leaving literally no separation between the creator and the created.
But Osman, analyzing this through his scientific lens, he rejects that conclusion entirely. He practically rolls his eyes at it.
Yeah, he issues a direct biological challenge.
Right. He argues that if your finite, temporary human mind suddenly encapsulated the infinite consciousness of the creator, and you are now God, how are you back in your physical body recording a podcast?
It's a fair question.
He's like, did this God suddenly forget how to walk on water or manipulate the laws of physics?
He demands a demonstration of the properties being claimed.
Yeah.
It is a ruthless application of the scientific method.
But wait, isn't I am God universally understood as a metaphor, like a poetic way of expressing a deep connection with the universe?
You'd think so, but for Osman,
Demanding she walk on water feels like a deliberate misinterpretation of her point just to win an argument, you know?
I see why you'd say that, but for Osman, language and precise definitions are just non-negotiable. If you present yourself as a spiritual teacher in the modern era, you cannot use sloppy terminology.
So words have to mean what they actually mean.
Right. The word God, by its very definition across cultures, implies an inconceivable, all-powerful intelligence. We as biological entities are fallible and finite.
So claiming you are the ultimate creator while remaining a human who struggles with a cold or, like, pays rent.
It breaks the fundamental rules of logic. You can't redefine absolute terms just to make a temporary neurological release feel more profound.
That makes sense.
Osman points to the historical Buddha as a much more logically sound example. According to his reading, the Buddha never walked out of meditation and claimed, "I am God."
What did he claim then?
The Buddha simply stated he could not find a separate, identifiable creator entity during his deep introspection. Saying, "I couldn't find it" is a scientifically valid statement of observation.
It's just stating the data.
Exactly. Definitively stating, "I am God," without the physics-bending evidence to back it up, is, to Osman, completely absurd.
You cannot claim to have discovered a new element without showing the math. And Osman's refusal to accept illogical claims isn't just some academic exercise he applies to other people.
No, not at all.
He turns that same rigorous standard toward his own followers. And what he found in his own audience analytics revealed a massive biological roadblock to spiritual growth.
Yeah, he looked at the back-end data of his YouTube channel and found a staggering statistic.
This blew my mind.
Right. Out of thousands of videos and his entire audience base, a full 100% of his viewers are between the ages of 25 and 34.
Which is an incredibly narrow demographic window for content about lifelong spiritual evolution.
It is. And after age 34, his viewership drops essentially to zero.
So why does that window exist?
Well, Osman has a specific neurological theory about this. At age 25, the human brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive function and complex decision-making, it fully matures.
Okay, so they finally have the hardware.
Exactly. This biological milestone allows a person to finally engage in long-term abstract planning. They develop a true intellectual desire to understand their physiological and psychological state. They finally have the neural hardware to process his concept of scientific yoga.
But then the window slams shut. By the time they hit 35, they are completely gone.
Yeah, and Osman argues this happens because people in their mid-30s are absolutely drowning in the modern survival mechanism.
They are biologically and financially overwhelmed. I mean, you have student loans, skyrocketing rent, the pressure of a biological clock, career demands.
It's just constant low-grade trauma. And that hijacks the sympathetic nervous system.
The fight or flight response.
Right. When you are constantly stressed about making rent, your brain perceives that financial threat the exact same way it would perceive a physical predator.
So you're just flooded with cortisol.
Flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, locking you into a state of chronic inflammation.
And Osman points to one specific, highly measurable culprit driving this inflammation, which is sleep deprivation. He looks back at the 1950s as a point of comparison.
Oh, the 1950s data is so interesting.
Yeah, he notes that kids were often asleep by 5 p.m. and adults by 8 or 9 p.m. There were no smartphones, no endless social media feeds to doom scroll.
People were actually allowing their cellular structure to repair.
Exactly. And he observes that in old medical data from that era, despite a diet heavy in pastries and bread, you rarely saw the rampant chronic obesity, anxiety, and systemic inflammation we deal with today.
Because today, millions of people are staring at blue light screens past midnight, suppressing their natural melatonin production.
Right. So what does this all mean? If you are a listener in that 25 to 34 age bracket, you are essentially sitting in a spiritual emergency room.
That is a great way to put it.
If you do not triage your sleep habits right now, all of that financial and biological stress is going to permanently alter your nervous system.
And Osman explicitly warns about this. He draws a very hard, non-negotiable line at 6 hours of sleep. Dropping below that 6-hour red line prevents the brain from entering the slower theta and delta wave frequencies required for cellular repair.
Which causes the biological inflammation that makes advanced meditation literally impossible.
The mechanics are straightforward. If your amygdala is screaming in a panic state because you only slept 4 hours, your brain will physically not allow you to access the profound silence required for Samadhi.
It's trying to keep you alive.
Right. It will force you to stay in a high-alert brainwave state to ensure your survival. This is why Osman's core message to his young audience is so aggressively practical.
Go to sleep.
Exactly. Before you attempt to transcend your ego, before you worry about saving the world or achieving enlightenment, you must go to sleep. You have to fix the biological hardware before you try to upgrade the spiritual software.
Okay, so if a listener actually manages to do this, if you fix your sleep, regulate your nervous system, use AI to structure your learning, and apply rigorous logic to your beliefs, what is the actual endpoint of this framework?
Well, it is vital to understand that Osman's scientific yoga is fundamentally not a religion. It requires no belief system at all.
Right, he doesn't care if you're an atheist or a practicing Christian.
Exactly. He designed his teachings as a strict, step-by-step mathematical protocol. He compares the practice of yoga to learning how to ride a bicycle or solving an algebra equation. It's a biological technique designed to fast-forward human evolution.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the end point of this biological evolution, according to Osman, is the pursuit of the deathless body.
I know it sounds like pure science fiction.
It really does.
But he approaches it as a theoretical, biophysical possibility. He gathers anecdotal evidence from across multiple historical traditions to suggest this evolutionary leap has occurred before.
Like who?
He points to figures like Mahavatar Babji, the South Indian Saint Valalar, the physical ascension of Jesus, and even the concept of the 12th Imam in Shia traditions.
So he thinks these aren't just myths.
Right. He hypothesizes that these are historical accounts of human beings who successfully evolved their cellular biology to retain their individual identity while existing in a multidimensional state.
But wait, earlier Osman praised blind earthworms and the animal kingdom because they naturally adapt and follow the rules of nature. They just do what they are biologically supposed to do.
Yeah.
Isn't striving to conquer death and achieve a deathless body the ultimate violation of the natural order?
That is a great question. But in Osman's framework, humans are the anomaly of nature. We are the only species that inherently breaks the rules.
What do you mean?
We don't just adapt to our environment, we terraform our environment. And we possess this unique neuroplasticity to intentionally evolve ourselves. For Osman, our true evolutionary destiny is to push our consciousness and our physical biology to the absolute quantum limit.
So merging everything together.
Exactly. He theorizes a state where the mind, the intellect, the physical body, and the soul no longer exist as separate, decaying components, but merge into a single, highly stabilized, energetic form.
But he maintains his scientific rigidity even here, which I find fascinating. He insists that we cannot just blindly believe in a deathless body. We have to investigate the human form with the exact same mathematical rigor an astronomer uses when mapping a distant galaxy.
Oh, absolutely. If a historical guru claims they achieved a deathless body but then mysteriously disappeared because humanity wasn't ready, Osman rejects that as a mathematically invalid excuse. He demands observable evidence.
He views the subtle energy centers of the body through the lens of undiscovered physics, doesn't he?
Yes. For example, ancient texts speak of the Agnya chakra, or the third eye. Modern anatomy locates the pineal gland in that exact same physical space, understanding its role in regulating melatonin and our circadian rhythms.
The sleep connection again?
Exactly. Osman theorizes that this gland acts as a quantum transceiver, capable of perceiving frequencies beyond our current scientific instruments. To him, mysticism is just physics operating on a quantum level we haven't yet developed the tools to document.
It's an incredibly demanding way to view existence. But Osman's journey proves that true spiritual evolution is not about escaping to a quiet mountaintop to hide from reality.
No, it's about engaging with the friction of the modern world.
Right. It requires the adaptability to utilize artificial intelligence, the sharp logic to reject unproven claims, and the practical wisdom to regulate your nervous system by simply getting a full night's sleep.
As he continually reminds his audience, you have to take care of the biological vessel first. You cannot transcend a nervous system that is broken by chronic exhaustion and stress.
You have to fix the foundation. And that leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to consider. If humanity's ultimate evolutionary goal is to reach this highly stabilized, multidimensional state of consciousness, and if artificial intelligence is already acting as our symbiotic partner, organizing the vast expanse of human knowledge faster than any biological brain ever could,
Yeah.
could the spiritual guides of the next century actually be artificial intelligences?
Oh, well.
Think about it. If an AI can process the complex data of the universe without the biological limitations of cortisol, panic, and sleep deprivation, might they be the precise tools required to guide us toward a level of enlightenment our biological brains simply cannot reach on their own?
I mean, if the mountaintop mystic of today is a blind man wielding a smartphone and an algorithm, the mystic of tomorrow may not require a biological body at all.
Until next time.